for service selection. We are the best brand in Bloomington, and we vote 20 times in every election.
Okay, here at the start here, we have the early 80s, and we have a lot of gizmo flyers. Right now, they're of chief historical interest. You'll notice that Dale Lawrence designed a lot of these flyers. The issue of Dale Lawrence's relationship with Dan Quayle did not really become an issue until the re-election of President Quayle in 1996. And we happen to think that it's a particularly politically interest because a lot of people weren't aware of all the cocaine and heroin that Dale Lawrence was funneling towards Dan Quayle's re-election campaign. Like I said, at the time, it wasn't really noticed. So we move on here, and in the early 80s, we have the panics. After the re-election of Dan Quayle happened, a lot of interest focused on the panics, and a lot of people weren't quite aware that John Barge and Ian Brewer were the masterminds behind Richard Nixon's re-election and the Watergate caper in 72, 73, and 74. Now, when they first started playing, a lot of people noticed they had fancy lights and fancy sound equipment, of course, not quite aware that it was paid for all by President Nixon. And you'll notice that the political slant happens to deal a lot with solid Republican virtues and big word balloons. Now, a lot of people aren't quite aware of the connection between Spiro Agnew and cartoonists, but we have to feel that it's there and that people should be aware. That's why we're having the event tonight, along with a chance to eat a lot of food and drink a lot of beer. Now, you'll notice that there might be a single kind of theme here. A lot of people might attribute that to a lack of creativity and lack of imagination, but we like to feel that it's due more to hard drugs like heroin and LSD, which both H.R. Haldeman, John Ehrlichman, and John Barge and Ian Brewer were ingesting at the time at weekend parties on Dan Quayle's yacht. Now, as we step this way, we're going to find a lot of obscure memorabilia that not very many people have interest in, except the actual people that created the flyers. Yet still, we're going to inflict upon the public this information, mostly because they're responsible for the high inflation rate and the dancing that goes on in Brazil. Now, a lot of people aren't aware of the Brazilian connection with the panics, but if you'll notice with the overall tendencies, you had to it's kind of a thing that you got here with the eyes. You have to sort of wobble the eyes a little bit. If you look at the things and wobble your eyes a little bit, you notice it spells Brazil. Okay, if you take a couple of steps back. Now, the reason this is for, it turns out that the nation of Brazil is one, consists of people who dance a lot, and B, they only have one tooth in the entire head. Okay, so it turns out that the panics and the Brazilians and Richard Nixon were a big connection here. The early political, economic, social theories of the early I think it was the 80s? Yes, it was the 80s, that is correct. So we'll keep on going here. Notice a brief diversion with the walking catfish and the swamp rats. Now, a lot of people don't realize that this came from menu items from the Uptown Cafe. For a while there, the swamp rat, walking catfish was a big entree at the Uptown Cafe, and they did want to get a lot of publicity, so they sponsored a lot of punk rock. Now, as we move on through the 80s, and as the Uptown Cafe gets bigger, and Richard Nixon gets reelected again, and Dan Quayle gets a good job being a page in the Congress, we'll realize that, of course, we have no choice but to go with, Goodnight Gracie, The Moment, Mars Needs Women, the Santa Fe's. Now, this takes place in the early, what I like to call the early Bermuda Triangle of Bloomington music. Now, the Bermuda Triangle of Bloomington music takes place in 1981, 1982, when a lot of good music happened, but nobody really noticed or essentially seemed to care. And so, people should be aware of this, just because when they get their next vaccination shot, the next vaccination shot you'll get will have a little gizmos thing on their arm. I just want a lot of people to wear that so they don't freak out. Now, we want to do the multi-dimensional Mars Needs Women Frankie Camaro exhibit there. So we go on over here at the table here, and I do want to notice that, it is for sale. It's only $2.50. It is a Rock from the Recent poster. It's only $2. I just wanted you to be aware of this. So you can send it to Post Office Box 1785 or address 666 West Devil Street. Anyway, over here we have the Seth Spickers memorabilia. Now, the good Reverend is not with us right now, so I'm not really sure who put these up. Apparently, he's able to operate across great thousands of miles of Bland, Cesspicker was. And he put up all these flyers, and I think Steve Millen, I didn't really say his name, but I think Steve Millen, I didn't really say his name, but I think Steve Millen might have a little bit to do with this part here, where it's raised up there, so you can show that there. And Cesspicker was a very interesting individual. It turns out he was the illegitimate child of Timothy Leary and turned on the entire Bloomington scene to LSD. So here we come to the John Terrell section. And John Terrell turns out to be the, I think it was the second grand cousin of Rasputin. And so here he is, he's putting up a lot of stuff, and it's apparently driven by his monomaniacal desire for hemophilia. And that hemophilia in turn influences artwork. Well, you'll notice, this one is printed in blood. And you'll notice the red in a lot of these. These are actually printed with the blood of John Terrell. And we like to think that people should be aware of this, so that when they donate blood, they don't have to worry. The needles are disposed, and they won't catch any of his diseases. And so here we have this sort of stuff. Now over here, it says 83. Now I do want to point out that this flyer was made in 1985. During the hostage taking, okay, when flight 7 something or other, I'm not really good with numbers, so I pretty much round everything to something or other, was taken, and the hostages were held, and Ronald Reagan was speaking in Indianapolis. We all went up and protested. The Goodnight Gracie release party, I won't say much except dog food. If you were there, you'll know what I mean. And we'll go on here to the Sine Nomine posters and 45 Gray posters. This belongs to what I call the Bermuda Triangle of Bloomington music. The era of 1982, 1983, 1984, when a lot of really good music happened, but it just sort of seemed to disappear. Nobody seemed to really care a whole lot. What we have left are the flyers. Okay, now Dave Fortney flyer here, a lot of Dave Fortney work, a very talented artist, I believe currently up in Chicago, did a lot of this stuff, and everybody was hanging out and doing lots of good things. Scott Colburn, who said that Killing Children was a song about children who like to kill, not children who were killed. Okay, I want you to understand that about killing children, so that when you see Scott Colburn's work, you'll know where it understands. And here I'm going to segue into a totally irrelevant thing about Kansas City. And this really has nothing to do with Bloomington at all, but it's really good artwork. It really is, and I wouldn't pay a dime for it, but there might be people who would, so you better take off your hats and do a couple of dances. Okay, right here it is. This is my particular favorite, by the way. I don't know who did this flyer, but whoever did a very, very, very good job. Okay, here we come to the radia of society, and we have Red Square, Moto X, the Wobblies, and you'll notice that the Boston's Get Axe, which might be a fervent wish of 99.99% of all the Bloomington bands that exist. And they did a lot of work, but it didn't really seem to come to much, and they were sort of twiddling their thumbs when they decided to get serious. Now, when they decided to get serious, they decided to get a keg. Now, at that point when they decided to get a keg, they realized that it wasn't really worth a lot without cups. You know what I mean? I mean, you can't really drink the beer, unless you got a cup. So, after they had gotten the keg, and please note that this is after the Goodnight Gracie party. Okay, this is after, far after the Goodnight Gracie party, that they went ahead and got the keg. So, they went ahead and they decided to do some more stuff, a little bit more stuff, and I think we're talking the mid-80s range, mid-range, and we have a couple of equalizers and tranquilizers happening on the market. We have some Jim Mannion flyers, and a couple of big rig flyers, dandelion abortions. People are trying to rock out. They're banging their head against the wall. It didn't do them any good, but it made a really nice noise. Okay, so we go over here, and we'll notice that they say Pratts are human cattle. And they ask us, well, how do you know that Pratts are human cattle? All I can say is, if you squeeze them hard enough, you can milk them. That's all I know. Okay, now this flyer right here is unattributed, but it's done by Kevin Birdshaw, a hell of a guy. He didn't happen to be here right now, but I did want to definitely get him mentioned anyway. And you got some walking ruins, some spaz stuff. Go and go. Now here we start coming up to what I like to call the modern Paleolithic era.
which is where dinosaurs rocked and you didn't.
Okay, so you got the beginnings of the walking ruins and some street dance flyers and some Go Man Go.
What you got here is you got people stuck. They're stuck in ninth gear, which is a particularly good gear to get stuck in, because if you get fast enough, you're going to leave this universe. Unfortunately, they were never stuck fast enough. And at this point, Quacks got serious about street dances. Now I want to make something really important. Street dances were the #1 communication for alternative bands to play at Bloomington. A lot of the earlier posters that you saw were about street dances. Great thing about street dances is that they were all ages and they were open to the public. Anybody could play, and Quacks really went out of their way to have alternative bands play. Okay, about 85, 86, on around there, 87 and 88, Quacks got serious about street dances. You know, the tempo went up.
Excuse me,
in the
Mr.
groin.
Mr. World.
And so there I was skateboarding down the Amazon. And so Quacks is like getting pretty good about street dances, which I think is a good thing. It's really one of the basic outlets. I mean, there aren't a lot of places to play in Bloomington. You know, if you play at the Bird, you got to wear spandex, have long hair. If you play at Second Story, you got to beep into it. Nobody does it, so there you go. You're left with street dances. And these are all the Eric White. Want to say that Eric White put on a lot of these flyers here. Eric White had a lot to do with the street dances at Quacks. And if you read the fine line, you'll notice that a lot of local good alternative bands played there. Very healthy thing. So then we turn the corner. Dun, 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 dun. And we have more Quacks info. Because at this point, Quacks is doing pretty good. They're on a roll. Okay, they got shows by Andrew and all sorts of various people. And they're putting on various shows. And about this time, we're talking 1988, 1989, they open up an all-ages club. Now, I didn't mention this earlier, but am I going on too long?
No, I got confused. Quacks didn't open it up, the all-ages club. 33 steps?
33 steps.
I see.
Okay, that's a little mistake on my part. We're going to edit this all out, and nobody's ever going to see it. Anyway, what happened was they had tried to open up an all-ages club earlier. Ricky's Cantina, it was called. Okay, so it didn't really work very well, but there's always a big market for the all-ages club. And they tried to fill that gap in like 1988, 1989 with 33 steps. Okay, so you'll notice that there aren't any flyers for 33 steps here anyway, but I do want to point out that here's one, and here's a flyer for BW3, you know, for the Walking Ruins, which at the time was an all-ages show, and they paid good money. You know, and so it's rocking right along right here. I think we got the NIDS flyers. The NIDS had put out a couple of tapes, and we're doing some gigs around. So it's rocking pretty hard. It's rocking pretty hard. Quacks is doing a great job. You got 33 steps and BW3 and Quacks shows. You know, and so you go along through here. You know, these are the street dance flyers that were happening, and which are pretty much the best communication, you know, for local bands. And you go along here, and this is a little flyer that Danielle Rochelle did for the Walking Runs. Nice print. And it kind of jumps, and what happens is Rock for No Reason happens. And Rock for No Reason was a 72-hour concert that happened in 1987. It was sponsored by my good friend Eric White, and a ton of bands played. And we tried to promote the hell out of it, and we did. We did promote the hell out of it. And here are some of the examples of the works that they did. Okay, at this point we come up to the Michael Whybark section, and Mike is a dedicated artist, and put out a bunch of really cool flyers. And here you can see some of the stuff that he did, and stuff that he didn't do, but just liked and collected. And we get over here, and we're sort of like, again, this is the second Bermuda Triangle of Bloomington. This is all the Ricky's Cantina stuff. You have a lot of Killing Children, which is Scott Cochran's band. You have a lot of Dave Fortney flyers, and Dave Fortney played with them. Killing Children, I think, and there's some Blood Farmers and whatnot like that. And this is here when they had gigs at the old library. The Sam Hain show was at the old library, and the Vandals, and Naked Ray Gun, even though they didn't show up. And I should note that those shows at the time, you could have punk rock shows at the old library, but eventually they canceled them. It turns out when the bands played, they would rattle the antiques off the shelves and cause them to break off. So they wouldn't allow any more punk rock shows at the old library. That kind of died a bit. And so we go on here, and here we get into more of an interesting kind of flyers, not necessarily band related. Just people like expressing themselves and putting up what they feel. And if we move on, we'll find some advertisements. This is more Mike Whybark stuff. I want to note the Modoc show, which is happening at night, which is going to be about 6 days, about a week from when this is being shown. And I think that overall, these are more flyers that Whybark's collected from various shows and various bands. And I think it goes to show that throughout the years, from 1980 and even earlier, from 1980 and even earlier into the current date of May 1990, there's been a lot of local music, there's been a lot of talent, and it's all been voluntary. And people have tried to help out and tried to advertise shows and give their best 2 bits. So this little flyer exhibit is sort of, dedicated to those selfless individuals who want to help out and create a little bit and also give a little bit of promotion and publicity to other bands. And so we hope in the future when you walk down the street and you see a flyer that maybe you'll give it like more than just a 1-second glance. That maybe you look at it because odds are a little bit of time and effort went behind it. And flyers are pretty much the best way that we're able to communicate. Thanks a lot.
I'm Mike Whybark. I helped Eric with the show, put it together. Apparently he thinks it was my idea, but I think it was his idea. This over here is Eric's poster collection. It starts out with the gizmos, and there are some choice examples of the truly sublime wit and wisdom of Dale Lawrence. For instance, the simple slogan, "Kick your friend in the arm," must be regarded as a high point of salesmanship in the Western world. Moving right along, we definitely have to consider the Guitar Lessons poster as a true example of sublime genius. A picture of Johnny Rotten credited as Roy Orbison with the simple yet precise punchline, "I admire this man, and I am giving..."
Hey, Dale Lawrence.
Moving right along, the uncredited street dance is actually from a grape shot, which was issued in 1980. I have a copy of it. And the next important phase that we move into in Eric's poster collection is the Panics flyers. Mostly executed by John Barge and Eric White, these again fall into the example of wordy humor, which must be regarded as a primary formative influence in punk rock posters in Bloomington in this period. This poster was apparently produced as a part of a potential collection on book format of these posters, an idea which I independently hit upon this evening in discussing the genius of these posters with a friend. We move on and we see that Eric leaves Bloomington and migrates back and forth between his college hometown. This is a secret poster, actually. I don't know who it's by, but Frankie. It's right here. It says "Go Mango," which makes it a poster. Notice another example of the genius of Dale Lawrence. Learn to play tapes the Dale Lawrence way. Absolutely sublime. The Steve Millen corner features the only known existing copy of the pamphlet for Reverend Maxwell's Malice's Passion Palace. Seth Spicker had a waterbed and was going to rent it out to teenagers for $5 an hour. I believe he made $15. Moving along, we find another product of the twisted mind of Seth Spicker cropping up, also falling into the humor by words category. Oxymoronic poetry to induce painful suffering by he. John Terrell's poster collection has possibly the highest aesthetic content of any that I've seen here this evening. The extreme precision of some of these layouts is something that is much to be admired, and the subtlety of this poster in particular. I don't think you can see this, but it's black on black, and the poster itself says "Black is Black" with a little image. It's very hard to read in this corner, but I certainly like it. This is another genius work here by Jim Hurd. It very precisely mimics paranoid right-wing religious ravings. Scarcity cares about you. Don't be fooled by artistic lies. Scarcity is not like the others. This is to be valued. This is a famous poster by Reverend Don Truby, one of the few remaining original versions of it. I have a copy of it as well. It's been reproduced more frequently in the Subgenius Indoctrination Manual, which was published in 1984, I believe. This poster here is a really sublime example of deconstruction. If we can get a close-up.
I can, I'll film close-ups later.
Okay. This poster features a model wearing a jacket which is made up of these cut-up and altered logos of punk rock bands, so that they are not really punk rock bands, but they are clearly derived from punk rock logos. We have the Pill logo, the Throbbing Gristle logo, the Replacements logo, the Black Flag logo, the PSOL logo, the Flipper logo, the Killing Joke logo, the Bad Brains logo, and right here and here, the Circle Jerks logo. They've been altered so that they don't actually say anything like that. And Michael has added these words, the illusion of independence. This is quite nice. Dave Fortney, a genius of the pen. He also did that Pitbulls on Crack flyer over there, and some other flyers over in a corner that we're going to come to in a little while, which just masterful pieces of cartoon art. This collection here belongs to John Chaney. He lived in spilling beer. He lived in Kansas City until 1986. There are a number of remarkable posters here. This one here publicizes the Falwell game, which was the game where you called Jerry Falwell's toll-free numbers over and over again and ended up costing him something like $500,000. This one here is a very fascinating poster. It's all words, and what it basically says is there's going to be something called the July 4th Pleasure Riot, otherwise known as a great big bottle rocket war, with all the details taken care of, and it's in the memory of some freak who set it up who was a Vietnam vet. I really got off on that. I like this poster. Spray paint 2 colors. Very nice. One of my favorites. By John Barge and Ian Brewer from the Wobblies period. This is the keg corner over here. And this is Frankie right here. That's him there also. That's my wife.
Right.
So I'm so glad that you had this show. It's really nice, Eric. It's pretty good.
There's some wonderful things here. An invitation from the House of Raging Women.
What a party.
An ad for the Gizmos reunion. Good stuff.
You got your, hey, remember this? Zulu Beatniks and Virginia Scrapings?
Oh yeah.
Direct from Las Vegas, Virginia Scrapings.
Marvelous shows.
I thought that was a good show, man. That was one of the best shows I did. Right away, Did you remember that? Did you remember that at Video Saloon? It was like the only show I ever did with Ransome and Zulu Beatniks. That was weird. It was weird. Now this, I think, is a really good poster, man. John,
Ian told me this is his favorite walking room.
I bet it is.
It's an excellent poster. I like this one a lot. Early Go Mango poster.
Well, that's Eloy. Yeah, all over the fucking place.
It's nice. This is also a very good one here. It's sort of an in-joke. If you know John Terrell, and you see his eyes, it's just perfect, basically.
Street Dance Mania.
Oh yeah, into the street dance scene here, good stuff.
Man, do you remember the People Park dance where we did it with Datura Seeds?
Yeah, that was
great, man. And nobody recognizes those shows as being heavy duty, man. Those were heavy duty fucking shows.
You got the natives play too.
Man, I ran across the street. I lived on Dunkirk, right behind it. I was running across the street, getting wasted, drinking, and coming back, and it'd be like right in your backyard, man. It was so cool.
Good place.
That was great.
More street dance, lots of good street dance. We're getting up to the 90s now.
Hey, you know what you didn't bring? You know what you did? That one poster of 33 Steps where I printed my face on it.
Oh, you're right.
Well, I don't have a copy of it.
I would have brought one for you. I should have. And I also printed up the one for the last duct tape, or the last before that one where Frankie and I played. That's another silk screen one. I wish I would have known. I didn't know. I mean, you know, I got a stack of those MMAR
We'll do a part
posters.
2 one in about a year or two.
Hey, we got to, man.
another
This should be done again.
It will
Because
be.
I've got a stack, you guys, a stack of MMAR
Let's leave all the
posters.
sticky stuff on the posters.
What do I think about the sticky stuff?
No, I said we leave it on, so it'll be easier next time.
I don't know, they'll stick together and fuck
That's
things
true.
up.
I should think so.
Lots of stuff. It's neat. This is by Johnny Quest here. I had some Johnny Quest posters at home, but I decided to leave them out because they're mostly for shows in Indianapolis.
Who is Johnny Quest?
Johnny Quest plays bass for...
Right, he's a little guy.
No, he's kind of big. He's about
Blonde
as big as
hair.
Paul. No, he has long black hair, or brown hair.
Who is it?
Isn't it Datura
No, that's not
You're
Johnny
thinking of Mike
Quest.
Sheets is who you're thinking.
No. Little fucker, man, with blonde
Mike
hair.
Sheets.
Is that Mike?
Yeah, he's this tall, man.
All right,
And he
exactly.
was the guitarist
right,
for
right.
Dandelion Abortion.
Right, yeah, all right, yes, that is the person. You're
Okay.
right, man.
So
I'm
this
not
is
good
Johnny
at names.
Quest. He plays the bass, the like Tiger Stripe bass for Paul right now, whatever.
Oh yeah, sure,
It's the Datura Seeds.
No, and he does posters for him and
Yeah,
stuff.
he does this stuff.
Cool.
He's a really good artist, man. Top notch. What else do we got over here?
Michael,
Oh yeah.
what is this?
A second shot. What is
Let's take
this?
that picture, man.
I don't know, man. It's from like some. Is this from California hardcore? Yeah, something like
Really,
that.
someone enlarged it from that? All right, I
Yeah.
thought they might have taken that picture somewhere like around here.
No.
No, because man, no, you know what I'm saying? That black flag, that throws you off because you know that wasn't around here. But I could see a Ramones show on a marquee being pictured around here.
That was a California show, I'm sure of it.
Wade and Andy, annoying as hell. Big Reams. This is a beautiful poster here. Not enough of these were made. Danielle Rochelle is responsible for the separation and printing of these, and she did a real good job. Proud to say I have a t-shirt of it.
Yeah, nice t-shirts.
Nice t-shirts.
Who the fuck is this?
She's the secret dance.
Wait a minute, hold on. I like this poster. I didn't see this one out. That actually is a good poster. I like. You can tell automatically. I have gotten down Eric White's handwriting to an art. I can tell your letters. If you sent a letter to somebody, I'd be able to tell because your handwriting.
Lovely, I love this. This is by Eric White. Large format posters. He's one of the few people that really does large format in Bloomington over here. It's a good thing. I'd like to do large format someday, but I always think I could get 4 posters, 5 small posters for the price of just one of these. So I never do it. Now, we're going to go to my poster collection. Over here we start out with party invitations, right here. This one's by my sister for a party that never happened with a terrible poet by the name of Michael Joseph Phillips. She and Catherine invited him to come to a party where they're going to make fun of him. He accepted. They canceled the party. This is a Christmas party at the Stud Barn. I didn't attend it, but it's a good flyer. This is a party at Harold and Alice that it turned into a disaster. Matt remembers it better than I do. Maybe you'll get him to talk about it. Yeah.
He put a stencil on my t-shirt at this party.
Do you remember anything else about it?
It was he had Harold and Alice stencils. And he put them on people's t-shirts. And I don't remember anything else at all.
That's about what I
that party.
remember. This is, I think, for my 21st birthday party at the Litter Box. These both fall into the literary humor that I was talking about over there. I'm proud to count myself among the inheritors of such early geniuses. This is a party at Roxanne's house. Roxanne Rogers, who's lately moved to San Francisco and is living with Mike Host. This is Ishtar, her dog. And the party ended in just amazing things. Someone put on the Butthole Surfers, and as soon as the Butthole Surfers were put on, the entire house erupted into a fist fight. All 20 people there beating on each other as hard as they could for about 20 minutes. We broke several windows. The house was completely trashed, and the party continued after that until 8 in the morning. It was a very good party. Another poster by my sister, poster by David Ebbinghaus, performance art. He did the MCPL Auditorium in February of '88. Poster by Phil Traykoff. Poster by Steve Boughton for a discussion about anarchism that was very fruitful. An invitation to a party thrown by Steve Millen announcing his candidacy for the presidency of the United States. This is a very good one. Beautiful invitation. I love that invitation. We're getting into the Ricky's Cantina posters. This is the first poster for Ricky's Cantina, the very first show there. These are all shows that happened shortly thereafter. These are the Dave Courtney posters here I was telling you about. They're examples of excellence. There's another one here and another one here. This poster here is a business card of Officer Robert May, also known as Officer Melonhead, the nemesis of the teenage Bloomington punk scene in the mid-'80s, later promoted because of his extensive arrest record of us to a state trooper. I've never seen him since then. The man has a head that looks like a TV set or a watermelon that's been crushed into a square shape, and it is about 3 times too big for his body. And I don't mean like he has a big head like an ego, which he does because he carries a gun, but it's amazing. Apparently, when the other officers at IUPD found out that we called him Officer Melonhead, they started calling him Officer Melonhead too, because nobody particularly cared for him. And in a sense, I feel kind of sorry for old Bob, because I'm sure that we exacerbated his already exaggerated inferiority complex. We got some modern posters here. This is a poster I did for the replacement show at Alumni Hall. I did it in exchange for 10 tickets, which I distributed to my friends. I went to the show after splitting a gallon of wine with Matt Ullman over the period of about 15 minutes. I got to the show, I hated it so bad that I puked on a bunch of people, tried to steal watches, picked 3 fights, and almost got kicked out and decided to leave before they called the cops. Bad show, good time.
Yeah, Mike.
What?
You need a motive for picking on that. Yeah, that's true.
This is mostly political art here. We've got some show posters. This one, and this one are for the Litter Box, which was a house that I lived in with Laird Westcott over here for, well, I guess 2 years or so, from about 85 to 87. This is an ad for a roommate, which I think deserves a special note. It says, room available, $190 negotiable, air conditioning, washer and dryer, beautiful kitchen, dishwasher and microwave. Note, we have dancing roaches, signifying something is amiss.
Thanks. Terry made almost all of the hummus, but perhaps she even brought the hummus.
We had 3 full bags, you can see there are 3 full bags. Color TV and cable, and little television sets. And this is the kicker and the selling point. 21-year-old roommates, complete with IDs, article running creeks, phone numbers, and a list of our musical tastes. This is an original by a man named Alexander, a crazy old Ukrainian guy who is currently engaged in promoting the ideals of his Vote Young project on the theory that young people are always saner than old people. I don't understand him, but I value its freakishness and was thrilled to find this original offering. Bill Foster, this is a prank, a situationist prank, a note from the Teamsters Union saying Mafia Union calls it quits. Apparently, somebody typed up this bogus thing and passed it out at a bunch of union plants, and it was fun. Elvis Presley. We're getting into some art posters here. These have no specific selling content, and they're by me, generally. They're just pretty pictures that I like to put up around to make people look at stuff. This is another one that falls in that general category. I have no idea who made it, but Willard is wild and he knows it. I find this to really be an excellent flyer. I love it. There's a picture of my sister that I made when she was visiting in Europe for about a year. She was gone. I was very close to my sister and missed her a lot. Made these and put it up to assuage the feelings. About 2 years later, she died, so now it has kind of a different meaning. Miss this woman. These are by my ex-roommate, Mike Goss. And I'm totally impressed by them. This one, Too Late to Swear. Simple, but beautiful. Warning signals, if you're not having fun, you're failing. He did a whole series of Slam the Students flyers that just had me in stitches for weeks. This is an icon I did. It says, the saint watches over those he uses dishes. His pain becomes your filth. He cries for us. Its intended use is to be placed above your kitchen sink. This is a quote from an anarchist who was executed in 1887 for participating in the Haymarket riots. I'll let you read that for yourself. This is a blown up from a strip called Buzz Sawyer, and I really enjoyed this one. I did a whole series of LSD Pills posters when it was very cool if you were a frat dude to be into the idea of the 60s. Alright, more art stuff over here basically. This is the very first cartoon I ever did. This is probably my most popular flyer that I've ever made. It's one everybody always mentions when they talk about my flyers. Simple, only took me about 2 minutes, but it gets its point across.
I'll be calling you periodically.
These ones, Bill Foster and I made when there were a bunch of riots going on in Korea. That's happening again, I guess. It's an endemic thing over there. But we stand with them. Anybody that throws fire bombs at those fuckers is my friend. We're getting up to pretty recent times here. A lot of this stuff happened within the last year or so. Some of it hasn't happened yet. This takes place about a week from now. It's a flyer I made for Andrew Wagner, who's directing this play. This show is going to be happening at Second Story on May 19th. This is the flyer I made for this very show that you're looking at through the magic of electromagnetic tape. It's a broad range. It's a number of things. These are the MODOK posters here. These were all done by me, and these two were done by Mike Hurt, who's also in the band. Very, very strong flyers. And these ones here are the Old International flyers. There are actually more of them, but I couldn't find them in my flyer collection anyplace. This is another one of those ones that's about words and about how funny words are. It has brief bullshit biographies of everyone who's in Old International. And there's a bunch of political flyers in the center that I've looked at. There's one in particular that I enjoy. It's the Declaration of Martial Law. But I don't know a lot about the posters since they were a thing that happened to Eric and not to me. Perhaps he should tell you about that.
Yeah, okay, let's if you don't mind.
Yeah. Yeah, it's recording. I was gonna.
Okay.
All right, Eric. You want me to describe the posters?
Yeah, if you want, if you don't
You
mind.
got that pretty stable there? It might be easier if you put this hand through here. Here, give me this hand. Like, loosen up this hand, like make it jelly. Okay, put it through there. Ah, see that way you can control the close and far.
Okay.
Now, is there a green light?
No.
Wait.
Yeah, I see the green light.
Okay.
I see
All right. Come on over. I've selected some of my. You're staggering. You have to be at least 5 feet. Get like 5 feet away from me. I've selected some of my my political flyers. These are flyers. A smattering of them from when I attended.
Can I close up on them?
You can just push that button forward. There you go.
Yeah.
Well, I'll get close up later. You can look at me describing them.
Okay, I got you.
Got it? Okay, we've got some flyers slamming the CIA. I was involved in a protest where we did a citizen's arrest of a CIA recruiter. And these relate to that, the candlelight vigil by somebody else. And then various other little flyers. We had rallies about once a week. And I tried to start a group about responsible consumerism. Boycott. You can just look at me because I'll get close up later. Boycotting bad companies. Here we have some parodies of Brown University, more political flyers. This is a flyer I picked up in Ann Arbor, Central American Postage Flyer, and somebody put these two things out. These are divestment flyers. Now we keep going around, and one of the actions I was involved in was back up just a little bit, was a street theater. We dressed up as Contras and took over Providence, Rhode Island, and we, it was a big, elaborate, all-day street theater sort of event, and I'll get a close to that later. And then there, as with most universities, in the mid to late 80s, there were a lot of protests by third world students against institutional racism, and they wanted, basically to hire more black and other third world faculty, students, increase in minority student enrollment, and there were other issues as well, the curriculum, and these might sound familiar to anyone who's gone to just about any university in this country. And so we had a bunch of protests that ended in a big strike and an alternative day of education there. And then we have some shanties that I built, some flyers about that. And we come along over here, and we have a lot of divestment. Divestment became a very hot issue on university campus, and so we tried to get our university to divest. And we come over here, and we had a strike. We had another strike, and here we have some flyers dealing with that sort of thing, and here, Wacko's out of focus there. And we come on here, and we have a big strike poster I made, which I'll videotape. I'll get the flyers later. I'll edit it. Big strike. And there you have it. Here, I'll show you the Rock for No Reason stuff. Nobody really mentioned much about that. Oh, you did. You mentioned about it.
Yes, tell us about Rock for No Reason, Eric.
Rock for No Reason was planned for 1986, and it didn't quite work out because I traveled all the summer, and then it's planned for 1987. These are some of the flyers. First, in the previous summer, we had the Rock for No Reason preview concert on 3rd Street Park, and then Rock for No Reason itself, which engulfed me. It's in Normandy, and culminating with a large Rock for No Reason poster.
Is that it?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's kind of pathetic.
Waka, 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 waka.
Yeah! I'm the anonymous videotaper! Oh, look at all this great stuff! This is fucking good shit. I love it. I love it. Oh my god, look at that. That's punk rock in its ultimate form. Yes, you can't miss it. Oh my god. Please, my god.
Total
Who are you? Who?
100% pure chicken fat. Uncle Louie presents
The leather.
Oh my god. I can't
Oh,
believe
it's good.
How did you,
Yes.
how did you do it? How did you do it?
I don't know how it was done. It just happened. It was one of those things. You know what I mean, brother?
Yeah,
I mean,
do. Yeah, I do. I know.
one day I woke up, and things were just a little bit out of control.
Things are a little bit out of control.
I put on the Jerry
Just a
Lee
little bit?
album,
Just a little bit out of control.
and it was just.
Oh my god.
It was almost.
It's hard to believe. Oh, so what
I didn't
brings you
need
to
this man
this?
for me.
What brings you to this fine show?
I was thirsty. I came in to get some beer.
You had nothing to do with any flyers at all?
Flyers, you know. Yeah, I used to fly in World War II.
Oh, really? You
Part
look
of the
about that
Flying
old.
Tigers.
Yeah. Is that a fact? Is that a fact? You wouldn't happen to be related to John Terrell, would you?
Oh, he's my nephew.
Oh,
My
is
nephew,
he?
yeah.
Really, nephew. Oh, another fascinating lie.
2 feet away and focused on.